Welcome to the Soulful Success podcast. I'm your girl, Janelle Kiara, and we are back with another guest episode. I'm joined here by Toni,
Hello.
Tease Therapy, and I am so excited to have this conversation because therapy is my thing. I think everyone should do it.
Yeah.
And we're about to have this live therapy session. So I'm really excited. But before we get into the session, let the listeners and viewers know a little bit about who you are.
So my name's Toni. I am the founder of Tease Therapy Room. So for me, Tease Therapy Room is a platform that I created to kind of like give people that wouldn't access therapy the opportunity to access therapy. So a little bit about my background is that I am a life coach and a counsellor. I have a master's in integrating both the practices, so integrating life coaching and counselling, because I feel like they really complement each other. I had therapy as a child, and that's what kind of like sparked my interest in therapy. Obviously like the typical thing of parents breaking up, all of that kind of stuff. But as a child, I didn't really noticed or realized the benefits of it until I got older, and I realized like, okay, maybe this is something that, you know, I could do myself to people that were probably in my position who don't want to do therapy but probably need it and probably don't really understand it either. So yeah, I created this platform, done all the studying that I needed to do, and here I am.
I love this. We met at an event a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And as soon as you said you was a therapist, I was like, girl, I need you on the podcast. I am such an ambassador for therapy. I went to therapy when I was a child, as like you.
Yeah.
And then I went to therapy when I was about 18, had a really bad experience. Actually. And it put me off therapy.
How comes? Like, what happened?
So I went to this therapist, and immediately he was like, what's your biggest, deepest, darkest secrets? And I mean, he didn't say that, but you know, that's how it felt. And I left the session and I was really upset, you know, like there was no hi, hello, what's your name? It was just like, right, what's the trauma that you've been through? Like, you know, let's get into the fact that your dad wasn't around. And I was like, oh my God, you know
Scary,
what I mean?
yeah.
And I think that it's really important to find a therapist that aligns with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if you have a bad therapy experience, you probably aren't going to go back to therapy.
Yeah.
But I gave it another go. I went to therapy in 2022, where I was at a very pivotal moment in my life, turning 27. And I feel like there's something around being 27, you know, Saturn return vibes. But I had the best therapy experience that I've ever had. And it completely changed me as a person. It changed my life. It gave me self-awareness. It made me really evaluate, you know, where I'm at, what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because I've always been somebody who, you know, I think my life's great. But what I didn't realize is that the habits, coping mechanisms, things that I do are from a deeper place. And that's what I really explored.
Yes. And was it beneficial? Like,
so
did you get
beneficial.
To where you wanted to get to?
Yeah. Like it's literally, I am the person I am right now because of the therapy that I went through. But it's really interesting that you do life coaching along with therapy, because I think that they both go hand in hand.
Oh, definitely.
For me, therapy is like, you'll get into the wounds, you'll get into the core, but then the life coaching is how do you then move forward?
Yeah, exactly that. And I think like you've kind of said it in a nutshell. With therapy, it is about like the discovering, the understanding, the gaining the self-awareness, which I feel like is the biggest thing about therapy. And I think it's a tool that you need in your life, like knowing about yourself, like understanding yourself, because like you said, we have all these like behaviors, we have these thoughts, we have these beliefs, but understanding like where they come from and how they shape you as a person, it's just such a big insight. Because again, like when I was younger and I went to therapy, I didn't really find the benefits of it, because as a child coming from a black home, you're always told not to chat your business to nobody. Like, you don't chat your business to no one who's not in the family. So for me, someone coming in and asking me questions about what's going on at home, I'm like, is this a trap? Because what's going on? Do you know what I mean? So I think I'm really big on trying to like come away from that stigma, because obviously therapy is attached to, you know, mental health, and there's something wrong with you, and that you just need help, but it's not that. I see therapy as like a checkup, right? You go to the dentist for a checkup, you go to the opticians for a checkup for your eyes, dentist for your teeth, you go to the GP when something's not right, right? But in terms of like your mental, what do you do for your mental health? Like a lot of the time people go to unhealthy habits like smoking and drinking, and you know, there's a long list of things that people fall into. But how about just talking about it and facing those issues, you know, facing those thoughts? I think as well, understanding the link between your thoughts, your behavior and your feelings is such a big thing that is so underlooked. These three things play a big part in our lives. Like our thoughts, our behaviors and feelings, they all intertwine. They all kind of make us who we are. They present in different ways. They form your personality. They form who you are as a person. So if you don't have an understanding of how these things affect each other, then you can fall down like a very dark spiral, right? Because you don't really understand what is going on and how these interlink and why you're doing the things that you're doing. So coming back to that whole thing of self-awareness, I feel like having a therapist is that space for you to like unwind, that space for you to like gain clarity, to just talk about things that you might not necessarily think is a problem or you might not necessarily see as like an issue, but just talking about it, sometimes you get that light bulb moment. You're like, oh my God, like shit, that's what it is kind of thing. Or, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Do you know what I mean? And just from talking, it gives you that kind of space and it gives you that clarity, and it helps you to gain that awareness about yourself and your behaviors, your thoughts and your feelings. And I think like the difference between seeing a therapist and talking to your friends is that it's just not the same, right?
Yeah.
As a friend, your friend comes to you with an issue. Your first thing is, oh my God, that happened to me. Or, oh my God, I know someone who went through that. Oh my God, no. You're not actually being present with what someone is presenting to you. You're automatically thinking of like, what I'm going to respond to that, or how I'm going to help my friend, or what can I do to make them feel better, or tell them the truths that they need to hear. Whereas like in therapy, your therapist is actually being with you in that moment and just taking in everything that you're saying, like absorbing it. And I feel like on a day-to-day, we don't experience that with, you know, our relationships with our friends, partners. It could be like educational, or professional relationships. We don't necessarily get that. But when you go to therapy, that is your time to just, you know, have that moment and like let it really sink in for yourself and your therapist. Like just being with that person, being in the moment, showing them that you're listening, that you're taking in what they're saying, reflecting back the things that they've said. And I feel like even something small as reflecting makes such a big difference, because you'll say something and then, like for me, when I've had sessions and I've said it back to them, they're like, no, I don't mean that. And I'm like, but you just said that. So they're like, that's not what I mean. I'm like, so what do you mean? Because those are the words you literally just said. So even having someone reflect back to you, it opens up a whole can of worms. So I feel like, again, as a therapist, giving people that space and like showing that you're understanding, questioning them, feeding back to them, that in itself is like works a miracle.
100%. I think there's a big taboo around therapy, and like you said, you know, what's wrong with you? Why are you going to therapy? Because there's something wrong with you. And I remember when I, you know, spoke to my family, like friends, I think, you know, we're millennials, we've kind of been around this, you know, people going to therapy and stuff, and like my friends, we're all in alignment, so we get it, and most of us have been to therapy.
Yeah. But
when I spoke about it to like my grandma and like my aunties or something like that, they were just a bit like weirded out by it, because it is linked to, if you go to therapy, there is something wrong, without actually understanding, like, actually maybe, I mean, there probably is something wrong, but at the time you don't need to go with a problem. You can just go to have that conversation and really to learn and discover yourself. And I remember having a conversation with somebody before, and I was saying that they should go to therapy, and they're like, but talking's not going to solve my problems. But it does. It actually does. Like, well, what are they going to solve? And it's like, a therapist isn't there to solve your problems.
Not at all.
You're here to solve your problems, and you solve your own problems by talking it out.
And I think that's like a very important thing as well, because a lot of times people think that therapy is about getting advice and someone telling you how to live your life and what you need to do better and what you need to improve on. But it's far from it. Like, as a therapist, we are not here to give you advice. We are not here to tell you what you need to do or anything like that. We are here to guide you, and it's all client led. Like, it's about what you bring to the session and the direction that you want to go down. We'll like point things out to you to make you aware of like what you're saying, where you're going, and obviously like we try to aim to find an end goal, like that. What direction are you trying to go down and stuff like that? But sometimes you don't even know what the end goal is. So it is just about having that space. And what you said about your friend like saying, oh, talking about it is not gonna, that is something I hear so much from black men.
It was like it was
and like not to like call anyone out or anything, but my thing has always been around like black men and mental health and masculinity and all of that kind of stuff, because men think that talking about issues, it's not going to resolve it. What are you going to do to help me? No. It's not about me helping you. It's just a problem shared is a problem halved sometimes, you know? So having that I'm really on that journey to kind of like crack down at that.
I think there is a big thing with, especially with men and therapy. I'm so surprised if I speak to a man. This is like my new way, if I know I can date you, by the way. Have you been to therapy? Yeah, great. Okay, we can get along. Because I'm really shocked when men have been to therapy. And I think that there is a stigma around it when men go to therapy, like, you know, I'm cool. It is the masculinity thing, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
It's definitely the masculinity thing. And I think that the way that the internet is, with people like Andrew Tate and all of these men online that are telling men, like, you need to be like this and you've got to be stoic and you can't share your problems and you can't cry and you can't get upset. I think it is so toxic.
It is.
Because you're human.
Literally.
Above being a man, you're human. And you have emotions. And the more that you store up this energy, the more that you don't share your problems, is actually going to be worse for everybody else around. Not just for you. Do it for other people. Do it for your family. Do it for your kids. You know, I think a lot of the time that we have these, you know, bad experience with our parents is because they didn't go to therapy. And 100%. they've got their own trauma. They've got their own, you know, inner child problems that they've never resolved, which then pass on to us, and all we're doing is going in a cycle. Yeah,
literally. And exactly that. And I think even with that, so I've done a lot of research with like men, masculinity, and like seeking help and stuff like that. And one of the things that I did find is that a lot of men would say that they won't teach their children to be that way, which I found quite interesting, because it's like, it's one thing when you teach your child certain, you know, practices and stuff like that, but they literally will copy what you do. So if you're going to kind of like show the masculine side of you, where you can't show your feelings, and you can't show when you're upset, and you can't express yourself and all that kind of stuff, your child is going to copy that. Regardless of how much you tell them it's okay to like express how they feel, if they don't see you doing that, where are they going to learn how to do that? They're not. 100%. They're not going to.
And I think that there's a fine line, I think, between, you know, really masking your emotions, but then there's the other side where, you know, rage and anger and crying and like trying to be in balance. So not masking your feelings, but also not flying off the handle. All the time. How do we find that middle ground?
I think, again, it comes back to self-awareness. It's about knowing yourself, knowing your triggers, knowing what calms you down, knowing what, you know, where your safe space is. If you can't answer those questions, then how are you supposed to manage your emotions? Like, you don't know what's triggering you. Okay, so anything can trigger you. Okay, when you're triggered, what do? If you can't answer that question, you're just going to spiral out of control. You need to know your triggers. You need to know what calms you down, and you need to know your safe space, because we're human. We are going to experience all these emotions. We're not going to be happy all the time. We're not going to be perfect. We are going to experience anger. We're going to have outbursts. We're going to have meltdowns. That's normal. We have emotions to feel, you know, but it's about knowing how to regulate these emotions, knowing how to have control over them. And if you don't know, like, for instance, if someone kind of like can pinpoint when they get angry, you can feel it. Like if you can pinpoint in your body, in your mind or whatever, you notice that something happens. When you start to notice that behavior, it's then about knowing, okay, what do I need to do when I notice this? Where do I need to go? Do I need to call someone? Do I need to, you know, be around a certain person or be at a certain place? And I think one of the things that I can say that I would recommend is about knowing your, like, no, it's about coming into contact with your five senses.
Oh, I like this.
So again, it might already be too late. You might already be in that state of anger or something, but coming into contact with your five senses is something that I think really does help a lot of people when they don't know how to manage themselves. And maybe from that, you can find a way that calms you down. So looking at, like, finding something to look at that brings you peace, listening to something that brings you peace, maybe tasting something that kind of calms you down, like having a sweet or something that kind of, you know, mellows you out a little bit. So what was that? Listening, looking, taste, touch, texture, like feeling something that kind of like calms you down. A lot of people like are very sensory, so maybe like a blanket or a certain top, or, you know, it could be a chair or anything, but just know it, being aware of like changing the senses that you are feeling. And I don't know if that's all of them. So looking, feeling, tasting, touching, there's one more, smell. Yeah, so it could be like essential oils, you know, it could be your perfume, it could be the smell of like a cushion or just something, you know. Sometimes like things smell like home, so, you know, if you're maybe in your car or like at work or somewhere, having something that, you know, a smell that calms you down, and from that you might find little things that actually kind of like help. But I always recommend to start off with like five senses when you're in that motion, and then just being mindful about what it is that sent you that way. Like what is it that has made you feel angry or feel upset, and just like peeling back from that. I think again it's just something to start that self-awareness journey.
Self-awareness is a very funny concept for me in particular. I am very self-aware. I'm very in tune with my feelings. I'm a Cancer, so I'm super in tune with my feelings. I know how I'm feeling at the time. I can describe it, and I know the answers. You know what my problem is? That I still go against what I actually need to do.
Okay.
So I could be very self-aware and know that actually this is not the best decision for me to make right now.
Okay.
But then I'll still make that decision. Okay. What is that called, and how do we overcome that? Because I feel like we all do it. Like it could be even something as simple as like you're laying in bed and you know that you need to go to the gym, but then you don't go. Or it could even be something like, you know, being in this relationship is not good for me, but I'm still gonna stay here. Like, how do we deal with that?
So I think it really does depend on the context. Like, you know, going to the gym versus staying in a relationship, very, very different. But I guess like a lot of the time it's about staying in that safety net and not wanting to kind of like branch out of that. So you know that staying in this relationship, it guarantees your relationship. Like it's a safety net. It's something that you're familiar with, right? Leaving that relationship now, there's so many things that kind of like will come with it, and it's about the mind as well, of how you think about that situation. So I can imagine like when you're in bed in the morning and you're thinking about going to the gym, you can come up with 1,000 reasons why you don't need to go to the gym. When you're in a relationship and you know you need to leave, you can come up with 1,000 reasons why you don't need to leave. So it is about like that perception, how you perceive that situation, how important it is. And I think, again, another tip I would say, as old as it is a pros and cons list, right? People really overthrow a pros and cons list, but I really feel like when it's right in your face and you're facing it and you still decide that I'm gonna, you know, make the decision that's wrong for me, then, you know, that's on you. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I would say perception, how you perceive the situation, and safety net, like being in that safety zone and not wanting to like deal with emotions or situations that are gonna kind of like pull you out of that safety zone. And I'll say as well, when you're in that situation, like staying in the safety zone is not going to help you grow. Like nobody grows in a safety zone. So it is about being aware of that and challenging yourself, you know, in that moment. Am I really going to like stay here and not go to the gym just because I don't want to.
Yeah. I'm like sat here and I feel like I'm actually in a therapy session myself right now, because I'm like thinking of all the things, what I know that I need to do and I'm not doing them, or that it feels comfortable. And growth for a lot of people is uncomfortable. And we as humans are wired for comfort. We want to do what makes us feel good, even if it's not beneficial to us. Even if staying in that relationship or staying in that job or whatever it is actually going to hinder you in the long run, it's like in that moment, it just feels so comforting, and it's so hard to see the bigger picture sometimes. And I think for me, therapy was also showing me the bigger picture.
Yeah.
When you're in the situation, you cannot see the outside perspective.
Definitely not.
And your friends aren't going to give you, they're going to give you their personal opinion, their personal perspective. Whereas when you're in therapy, it's like, here's the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Here's what's really going on, and giving you, like just like a more open point of view.
Yeah.
And also what I think with therapy is not being judged. Was a big key for me.
Yeah. I think that is so important, because you go to therapy like with everything and anything, right? And you have to feel safe within that space. Otherwise, if you're not totally honest with your therapist, and you're not totally honest with yourself, do you know what I mean? Because you're going to resolve a situation, or, you know, understand the situation for yourself. So if you don't feel like you're in a position where you can be 100% honest with your therapist, then you're doing yourself a disservice. Because again, like having it, when you speak about it to a therapist, you're it's like you're almost like throwing it on the wall, and you're able to like view it. Do you know what I mean? With a friend, there's going to be the back and forth. But with a therapist, it's like stuck. Okay, you said it. This is what it is. And you're like, oh, okay. Do you know what I mean? So again, another thing that I would say as well is like, when you're in that situation and you're going through all these things in your head, it's in your head. It needs to get out. And I feel like the mind is one of the most dangerous places you can be in, because once you have these thought processes constantly going and going, how do you get out of that spiral?
It's true. I think that also, when we spoke about, you know, you can give yourself excuses, in your mind, you can really create a picture of something that's not even happening.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this woman was saying that she was doing a talk, and there was someone in the audience, and it looked like the person was not enjoying the session. So in her head, she was like, oh my God, I'm doing a really bad job. You know, they're not enjoying it. And then she thought about it over and over and over again. The next day she gets an email, and it was from the woman saying, oh my God, I really enjoyed that session. I'd love to book in with you, you know, for one-to-one. And I think that we create these stories in our own head.
Yeah.
I have done it so many times. As an example, this is a small example that everyone can relate to. You know, when you're going through airport security, and all of a sudden you have an AK-47 in your bag. You have a kilo of cocaine in your bag, right? Because in your, like, I don't know why every time I'm going through airport security, I'm like, there's something, like,
stop.
there's nothing wrong. But it's that pressure. And you like build these scenarios, like that's a small thing, but you can really build these scenarios in your life. You can make it feel like your friends don't like you, your family's judging you, you're not good enough. And if you keep that in your head, then that is going to shape your reality.
100%. Like I said, your mind is like the most dangerous place to be in is your head, because like you said, you can create so many scenarios, so many situations, have so many conversations with yourself, and how much of that is actually true, how much of that has actually been relived. But then you have a conversation about it, or even journaling about it, and it's like, you're like, oh, okay, this hasn't happened. And I think it comes back to that whole thing of challenging yourself as well. So like, you have this thought, how true is it? Has it happened? No. Is this my reality right now? No. And I think that's another thing as well. Being present in the moment is something that we do not do at all. Like, we're always focused on the past or the future. And like, in that moment, has that situation happened? No. Did it happen in the past? Maybe. Is it happening now? No. So what is stopping you from living in what is happening right now? Your mind. your thoughts.
It's so true. And I know anybody that's watching or listening to this right now is just like this, you know, it's snapping for them because when we don't talk it out, when we don't have a therapist to speak to, then the problems are just ruminating. And then what's happening is that you're going to create more problems. And also what happened when I went to therapy, which I thought was really interesting, is something that I didn't even think was a problem. It was actually a problem.
Yeah.
So as an example, British people, we love alcohol, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. We love alcohol. So I would drink like every weekend because it's normal, right? But then what I also realized is if I was happy, I'm going to go and get a drink. You know, we celebrate with a drink. If I was also annoyed or I'm upset or I'm going through heartbreak, I'm going to go for a drink.
Yeah.
And then I understood that. So I didn't go to therapy about that. That was not the reason that I went to therapy, right? But then through the sessions and through really getting to know myself on a deeper level, I identified that as a problem. I realized actually that's not the greatest thing that I can be doing. And then I ended up going into yoga, but it was just like a proper profound light bulb moment, like you said, when you're like, actually, this is a problem and this is something that I need to deal with. And the way that I'm dealing with my feelings, because a lot of it is the feelings that you're having and the way that you're reacting to your feelings. This is not the best way for me to deal with this.
So like you start to form unhealthy coping mechanisms that you don't even realize are coping mechanisms, but it's helping. So, and if you don't talk about it, you wouldn't have realized that that was a thing. And these are little things that then turn into like people becoming alcoholics or like drug users and stuff like that, because they don't even realize how dependent or how much they go to these, you know, things for support or for comfort. So yeah, it happens. It definitely does happen.
I think another part with therapy is people don't want to dig up the past. They don't want to re-experience it. If you have had trauma in your childhood, if you've experienced things, or even if you've been through heartbreak, right? And you don't want to relive that situation, but therapy makes you relive it. I would say that's probably one of the reasons that people don't want to go.
I hear that. And like therapy isn't always about, you know, bringing up your past or talking about your traumas and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just about, like I said, being present and understanding what's going on right now. Yeah, conversations might lead to where they've come from, but it doesn't necessarily have to be based on your past experiences and all of this kind of stuff. It is like, there's different types of therapy, there's different approaches. So something like psychodynamic therapy is based on your childhood. So, you know, uncovering your childhood, understanding how it's made you who you are now. And then you have some things that are like solution focused, where you're focusing on, okay, this is what's going on right now. How do I move forward with that? You've got like existential therapy that's about the here and now and understanding, you know, like purpose and meanings and all this kind of stuff. So again, it is about knowing what type of therapy you want and what you want out of therapy, and then, you know, going forward. I think it's really important to like do your research, know the different types of therapies that are available to you, understand what you want to gain from it as well. And I think it's important to also get to know your therapist before you commit to sessions, because you're not going to get on with everyone. A lot of the time I find that, like, I've done a lot of work with like teenagers, and my work has always been through like social care and stuff. So a lot of the time they have a social worker or they have a YJS worker because they're going through like a sentence or whatever, and they don't tell them nothing, right? I come in, I start, you know, and again, building a relationship, very, very important, right? I come in, my aim is to build a relationship with everyone I work with. The main thing for me is building that rapport, because without that, you don't get anywhere. Like the trust, it's not there. So it's just not going to work. So a lot of the time I find that when I'm like working with a teenager or a client, and I focus on the relationship itself, everything just comes out naturally. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes you just don't get along with people as well, and that's okay. But it is about finding the right fit for you, because at the end of the day, this is about your life. Like you need to feel comfortable in that space. You need to feel comfortable with that person. So yeah, I think doing your research and beforehand is really important.
And also, like you said, understanding what it is that you want to actually get out of therapy. But we find that a lot of people think that they don't need therapy. Like people say, I don't need therapy, I'm all right. But actually you're not. And they're usually the people that need the most therapy.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even like, you know, even if you feel like you don't have a problem, that's okay. Sometimes like people can go to therapy just to, you know, gain clarity of where they are in life and where they want to move, like how they want to move forward. It's not about, okay, I've got a problem, I need to go to therapy. And I think that mindset needs to be shifted, where you feel like you need to kind of like go to therapy because there's an issue. We all go through issues. Like no one's life is perfect. There's not one person on this earth that can tell me they don't have any issues, because come on, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's the issue.
There's issue. Yeah, that's the issue right there. But I think sometimes it can be just about gaining clarity. Sometimes it can just be about understanding yourself a little bit more, gaining that self-awareness. You know, there could be different angles of why people can go to therapy, and I think, you know, yeah, the stigma needs to be changed. It needs 100%. To be changed.
I think life coaching may be something that people might gravitate more towards. If someone's at a stage in their life where they feel lost, they don't have purpose, they're stuck, what's the first thing that you would like get them to do?
The first thing will probably be telling me what, like, the feelings, the thoughts that come up for them. So, okay, you feel like stuck. What does that mean? Like, what are you stuck with? Are you stuck with career plans? Are you stuck with like personal things? Are you stuck within relationships? Like there's so many angles that it could be. Is it money? Is it family? What is it? So I think, again, identifying where that issue stems from. Do you know what I mean? Because people do have those moments where they're like, oh, I'm stuck, or I have no meaning, I have no purpose, I don't know what to do with my life. Okay, what does that mean? Like, what part of life does that come from? And I think, again, with therapists, like for me anyway, I like to do like questionnaires to kind of like figure out what's going on in your life right now. So that would be like something for me to like feed off moving forwards. And my questionnaires will include all areas. So like family life, money situation, career, emotions, friendships, relationships, health, you know, because there's so many factors that play a part in our everyday life. So breaking it down into these different sectors and understanding where is it that the problem is actually stemming from, and then working through that.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people don't even understand where the problem is stemming from.
Yeah.
Or maybe that maybe you're in a part of your life where everything just feels like it's not going well. You might be in a stage of your life. I was speaking to somebody yesterday. She's joining my coaching program, and she was at a stage in her life where it just felt like everything was falling apart. And I get it. I've been there. And when you're in that moment, it doesn't feel like there's a solution. You're so buried underneath everything that's happening, or maybe everything's being ripped away from you, and it's like you don't have certainty. And I think as humans, we crave for certainty. We want to know. It's like, you know, if you're dating someone, you want to know where it's going. Are we in a relationship or are we not? You know, the situationship thing is so toxic because we don't have certainty.
But then it comes back to you focusing on the future and the past and not being present in the moment, because like we're not fortune tellers. We're not going to know where our future's going to take us. We're not going to know where a relationship is going to go. We're not going to know where a job's going to take us. You just have to be present in that moment and work on what you can work on for right now. And if it's meant to be, it will be. And I think as well, when you were saying about, you know, when people feel lost and everything's like being taken away, again, when you sit down with a trained professional and you actually look at the areas that you feel that are being taken away, sometimes you realize that there's so much happening in that area that you haven't even realized how much you're progressing in that area. But because you're not where you want to be in that moment, you feel like it's a failure, or you feel like you're not getting anywhere. But actually, you've gone from here to here in the last 2 months. That's progress. Or you've gone from here to here in the last week. That's progress. You've let go of something that is hurtful, but in the long term, that's going to be so beneficial for you. Do you know what I mean? Or you've done something that you felt you know, sometimes when you end a relationship, yeah, it feels like the end of the world. You feel like, oh my God, I have no purpose. But if you weren't a strong person, you would have stayed in that relationship. And sometimes it's about, again, perception, how you perceive that situation. Yeah, it's done. It might feel like your world's ended and everything, but you've made such a bold step. Even the fact of like talking about it to someone, going to therapy, that in itself is big things. Like, people need to, again, be present in the moment and realize what you're doing right now to help you in these situations. And whatever's meant to happen in the future will happen.
You've just given me a therapy session. I'm just sat there like, you're so right. You're so right. But we are so hard on ourselves, and we want to be at the next step. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of, I think we all are, right? Of not celebrating the progress. And it doesn't feel like progress because we're always also comparing ourselves to where other people are and what they're doing. And we're on the internet and we're seeing everybody else. But that step, like you said, whatever step it is in whatever direction, it's progress. This is so wholesome. I'm so happy with this conversation. Like, I'm just sat here, and I know people that are listening or watching are doing the same thing, and the cogs in your head are turning. You're really starting to deep it, and that's exactly what I wanted to get out of this conversation. I wanted people to listen to this, but also start to think. And this is therapy. So if you're scared to go to therapy and you're worried, this is what it is. This is how it feels. It's not scary. It's actually just identifying, working through things, and gaining clarity.
That self-awareness. Again, like, coming back to that, self-awareness is absolute key to everything.
100%. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation.
It's been great.
I've really loved it.
Thanks.
And I hope that somebody that's listening right now has changed their mind and go to therapy.
I hope so too.
Where can they find you if they want to come to therapy?
Instagram is T's Therapy Room, but T's with double S on Instagram. And on TikTok, t's.therapy.room as well. Those are my platforms.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.